one of the founders of Fireside at 5. We started this platform about 2.5 months ago. We're pretty new, but really what our goals are is to facilitate solution-driven conversations that are intentional and collaborative and bring diverse minds together, just to kind of talk about the opportunities that are presented within each of our industries. So obviously today we're going to be discussing with Reactiv just a little bit about the future of events and how we are going to continue to celebrate. We've got some great panelists on here today. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I'll be on mainly to take notes. So the bottom of the agenda that we've written up, you'll be able to have access to everything that I kind of write down throughout the meeting. And then of course, since we are live streaming this right now, if we get any comments or questions from people that are watching, we'll feed those into this chat right here. I've put a little message in just so everyone can see. And if you do want to chat at any point or want to talk, put an @ in the chat box so that Jason can know to call on you. So yeah, without further ado, I'm going to let Jason introduce himself, and then we'll have introductions for the rest of you guys. You'll talk about who you are, a little bit about what you do, and what you're looking to get out of the conversation today. Jason, I'll let you take it away.
Perfect. Thanks, Gertie. So I'm Jason Shepard. I am the co-founder of Reactiv, and Reactiv aims to serve as a bridge between entrepreneurs and creatives and artists that are seeking space and landlords and business owners that have space that aren't being optimized. So we're looking to kind of provide an entry point to entrepreneurs to re-engage into commercial real estate. So we're really excited to host this entire series of conversations because we're addressing different industry leaders in fitness and food and beverage, and we're all living in kind of this post-COVID world. So I'd love to hear in a quick introduction how you guys are navigating these environments and a little bit about you, and then we'll kind of jump into what's going on in how we gather and how we actually celebrate. So I guess I'll start real quick with Casey, since he's front and center in my screen.
Perfect. Thanks, everybody. This is great. So yeah, I'm Casey. I'm the founder of Two Parts. We're guilty of throwing big parties and mass gatherings, and so the times have been more than wild. It's been crazy. So we produce everything from underground music showcase to crush to food and beverage events, kind of like everything under the sun. And yeah, I mean, I'm really excited to have this conversation. Just the biggest thing for our event industry is being able to collaborate and get a lot of different meetings and hangouts and having all these different discussions. And it's been taken away from us a little bit, obviously a lot more virtual and everything else, but really excited to learn and kind of share what we're up to and hopefully help grow our industry.
Awesome. And Nicole, you're to my left, top left, so let's go ahead and go next.
Yeah, hi, I'm Nicole Jarman. I'm the founder of Hobnob Events and Steamboat Food and Wine Festival, as it was mentioned on the agenda. I've been producing events in Denver for 15 years. I started, my very first event was a farmer's market. I'm really lucky that that was still able to open this year as a critical business. So I kind of founded my business on creating community. It was almost like the nexus of everything that we were called to produce was about how to bring neighborhoods together and communities together, and that's kind of been my underlying theme throughout. So and it's really interesting with the farmers market as we're watching people get out and about. They're still craving that. You know, I thought that it would be about the local food and about supporting the local economy, and I think there's a lot of it, but it's still about being with your community. And we're still moving forward, producing Steamboat Food and Wine in a lot different way, and kind of same thing as Casey, like how can we be creative to make people feel safe, but still gather, you know, and how do we make the policyholders also feel like we can be safe to gather? Why are we the industry that's still not opening?
Yeah, Nicole, I think you're right. I mean, I'm talking to a bunch of different people and they're like, I can cook my food and beverage at home. I'll work out I'll go on a run, but what I really miss is my people and being able to celebrate. So I think you're absolutely right. Sarah, what about you? I'd love to hear a quick introduction.
Yeah, hi guys. I'm Sarah Hendricks. I'm the Director of Community Relations and Marketing at Denver Union Station. Am I very, very laggy right now?
No, I think you're okay.
Okay, good. I can see my own reflection and it looks like I'm lagging so much. So for us, with Union Station, we're such a pivotal part in the community, and everyone kind of looks to us to say, is the city open? Is the city closed? RTD runs through here, Amtrak, you're even going to DIA through the A line. And then not to mention all of our events. So we feel like we're a pretty stronghold in the community, and the problem for us is, how do we get people here now? 66% of people are still afraid of going out and being in large gatherings and being around other people. And yes, we have hand sanitizer stations, and yes, we have face mask mandates, but where are all the people? So I think that having this discussion with everyone is going to be very interesting to see how everyone else feels about, the consumer confidence, and and of course, this is the loaded question, right? Like, when are people going to feel comfortable partying again? When are people going to feel comfortable being in large groups again? And that's really the interesting thing for us, is how do we deal with that? And if that is a year, how do we pivot?
For sure. That's great. So Lauren, I'll let you go next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Hines. I'm with Imprint Event Group. We are a DMC and event production company. We are headquartered in Colorado, but we have offices in Las Vegas, in Orlando. We also have a full office in Vail. And we work really heavily with the large conventions in Denver, or in all of our cities. I kind of work in the Colorado office. So we work really closely with the large conferences that come in to Denver. We work with, we produce large corporate events, meetings, conferences, galas, and we have a full event production side to us as well. Some of the services kind of under the DMC umbrella are team buildings. We do transportation for large corporate events. We do decor. We also have an entertainment house. So we are very much embedded in all of what you guys do and produce. And I think it's just, I'm happy to be here to connect with everybody, to kind of get the pulse of what everyone's kind of been going through. Like all of you, we've had to change our mindset as to what a large conference or meeting or gathering of people could even be. And we've been tasked to be very creative. I know we'll get to it later, but kind of the combination of the AV technical virtual world along with the live event industry. So yeah, I mean, I've been with the company 6 years, and we've definitely grown and shifted, and we were definitely on an upward slope and still are, but it's, we're just charting unnavigated waters.
That's great. And finally, Destiny, I'm sure almost everyone here has been at a Live Nation event, but I'd love to hear about you.
Yeah, so my name's Destiny Brito. I'm a director of sales for Live Nation. So right now I'm running the Summit and the Marquee, and then I'm dabbling a little bit, trying to get a hold of the Fillmore right now. So those are the three venues that I'm mainly focusing on. So it's like any range between like 500 people to like 3,600 people. So it's like the limited capacity right now is just like, it's outrageous. Just like, it's so sad. Just like, what's the new capacity for this? What's the new capacity for the Fillmore? And you're like 1,500 people, maybe, So that's kind of what we're working on right now, just like across the nation. All of our venues right now are just like not active, for the rest of the season. So it's just been it's been really hard for concerts. And it's definitely been hard for events, just because we are just mainly a concert venue and people don't even know that we do events. And then they're like, oh, you just do concerts there. So like, you guys probably aren't going to be doing anything until there's a vaccine, or, until next year. So that's definitely been a struggle. But out of this call, I just kind of want to get new ideas. I kind of want to see where everyone else is coming from, because right now I'm like, when can I start booking stuff? Like, when is it going to be safe? So yeah.
Yeah, so I think, it's changing every day, and it's really tough to even have an idea of planning when it changes on a daily basis. So I'd love to kind of start the call with a lightning round as far as, whether this is a pivot that needs to be made for a small amount of time or until we get a vaccine, like you just mentioned, Destiny, or is this going to be a new normal? And I think in a lot of the industry and verticals we're talking about, office is going to have a new normal. Retail is going to have a new normal. Fitness might have a new normal. I believe there's a chance that we just go back once we have this back to gathering. So I'd love to just kind of go around the horn and have everyone say, is this a time and a place that we need to pivot, or is there going to be a new normal in how we gather and how we produce events? So we'll kind of go in that same order if I can remember it. But Casey first.
Yeah, what a tough question though, like what the new normal is. I feel like every day I'm like, okay, cool. I'm getting a vibe of like what it's going to be like. What are we actually going to be able to do and interact and everything else? And I feel like everybody else, we're just kind of waiting to see. Like it's almost like a great experiment. Like for event planners and everybody else, we're so good at like planning out exactly like the flow of people and how everything will go. But end of the day, like we trust that people are kind of going to do their thing and interact. We build these awesome experiences to set them up for success. But now it's almost like the fear, like, can we make sure everybody stays in the right area? Like, what are the new norms, like what's the process here? Like, is everybody gonna wear a mask? Is everyone gonna do X, Y, Z? Does everybody know what you're supposed to do? And as event planners and gatherers, we kind of have like the list of 10 things to do before you come in, or like, here's how you use your ticket, all that stuff. Like, it'd be awesome if anybody ever read that to begin with. You've been at events before and someone throws their phone up and no chance that they've even looked at it. So I think for us, like we almost have to react to see how some of these smaller things happen. Like, what does a 10-person restaurant look like? Does everybody follow along? Okay, cool. Like we can build from there, but I don't know. I mean, I'm super excited and have like a ton of faith that people are gonna learn together, but putting me on the spot here of like what it's gonna look like, I have no idea.
Yeah, it's a tough question. So Nicole, do you think we return to maybe it's 2 years down the road or a year down the road and we're back and we're packed at Steamboat Whiting Festival and it's we're back to the old ways, or is there always going to be kind of this level of reintegration?
That's the one thing that I do feel like is going to change. I feel like we're not going to pack people in as much. I feel like people are a lot more, and not everybody and not completely, but I think people are a lot more conscious of their personal space and of space. And I think that the days of packing people in is going to change a bit. I think masks at a festival, at a food and wine event, food and beverage event, I don't even know how you do it. Casey talks about flow. I think I'm hoping that we kind of set up some flow actually at festivals even more so. There's like a one-way traffic. I think that actually feels kind of nice. So people, are all kind of traveling the same direction. But and that I think we're all getting into this like go this way, go that way. That might just kind of become human nature. But I think we're gonna see. We're gonna be required to see less people in a space for years.
Yeah, and I guess the follow-up on that for Sarah is, you have a bricks and mortar location, that space, you usually are packing thousands of people in transit through the space. I mean, are you guys looking at this as a long-term perpetual pivot towards reduction in space, or is this something that you think we're a year away from getting to, that type of density again?
The hopeful part of me says, this is temporary, how can we deal with this on a very temporary basis and sort of ease our way back into normalcy. But then the realist side of me knows that there are still people out there that don't feel comfortable, that are waiting for the vaccine, that we have all these mandates in place. And I think as much as I want to say, and as much as we're all hoping that it's just going to be a temporary thing for a short, let's say December. I think we're all anticipating that this year we're not having the events that we were going to have. I would love to say that after that, it like all goes back to normal. But I don't see that becoming a thing. I think it's going to end up happening in stages where, you know, you start with micro events and work your way into something bigger to see how people feel and to gauge their confidence levels.
Yeah, and I guess like Lauren, you're producing events in the convention center, and is that your same mindset? Is this is going to be a perpetual shift?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that every aspect of every service that we provide is for the foreseeable future, 1 to 2 years at least, going to be very, very different than what we've been up against before. Like I mentioned, we offer transportation. So the sanitization of those vehicles that we load people on and off of. Food and beverage, we do catering contracts for our clients. So the way food and beverage in large venues, convention center, hotel ballrooms, all sorts of venues around Denver, Live Nation, even DUS, Denver Union Station, sorry. Those are all going to be modified. And then another, big thing that I definitely think is going to be changing forever is going to be contractual terms. So the way a client contracts with us and the wording and the verbiage of what it looks like to cancel because of certain things is going to, I think, be forever changed, first and foremost. And then just the way the other services are provided. I think, I'm sure we might touch on it later, but there's also going to be increased cost for a lot of this, which is going to be, more staffing, attendance, sanitization. Like there's just so many elements that on all of those levels of the services that we provide that really tie into all of you guys that are, changed, if not forever, for at least the next 2 years solid, 5 years out, until there's really some solutions and answers.
Yeah, I think you're right. Trying to do all of the work that it takes to plan and produce, understanding that there's a contingency as far as fulfilling the contract and payment is a really tough way to operate a business. So totally understand that. And Destiny, I'll take that same question to you, but also want to use you to start the following question. Obviously, huge festivals, concerts. I'm interested, how are artists going to make money? What are you guys doing? Are you live streaming some and putting 50 people in an outdoor space? What does Live Nation in the future look like in this kind of interim period as we re-enter?
Yeah, so like on the event side right now, we've actually kind of started rolling out just like different idea plans with like everyone across the nation. So we're looking into like virtual events. Obviously, we're looking into like hybrid events. So it's like a certain amount of people can come to this can come into our venue for this event, and then we can also live stream it out to people who can't travel right now or anything. But one of the big things that we've been looking at is like drive-in events and drive-in concerts. So I know that there's been a few across the nation that we've done that were a good hit, but the thing we're trying to work around is just like, what about the venues that don't have a parking lot that you can't do drive-in events at? And as far as like the artists and stuff with making money, like I have no idea what's going to happen to it, because it's just like, I feel like you pay for your experience of going to a concert. So it's like this really, like this gray area where you're like, do you want to pay as much for a virtual ticket as you would to like go to this music festival? And it's like, not really. So like, what's it going to do to like what we're paying our artists and like the ticketing costs and all of that? But I know that we do have like a foundation right now that's like taking care of like the smaller artists and like the crews and stuff that do travel with the artists. So that's something that we're trying to do. I just don't know. And I'm kind of with Lauren on this. Like, I think it's going to be 1 to 2 years before things even relatively get back to normal, which is really scary. And I think like the capacities are just going to drop. I think like I can already see it. Like we're already making floor plans. Like one ways we're already talking about like what we're going to do for sanitation. Like we're going to have to like clean out every bathroom once it's like used by everyone, or like once, so there's a lot that's going into it. And especially with like virtual events, it's going to be heavier production. So it's like renting out all that extra equipment for it, and then like staffing it even heavier. So there's just so many factors to it, and it's really sad to see, but I think that concerts are going to be changed for a long time.
Yeah, I think Casey alluded to that, like a bunch of drunk people at a concert following Taylor into the bathroom. I totally see that happening.
Well, and then it's just like, it's kind of hard because it's just like, how do you regulate it? Like, if I'm a security guard, like, what do I do? Like, obviously we can't crowd surf anymore. And it's like, am I ripping people out? Like kicking them out? Are we like, hey, don't touch each other? You know, it's just, it's a lot.
It's really interesting. So Casey, I want to piggyback on the idea of like, streaming at multiple locations and being able to activate that for maybe some food and beverage and stuff that you guys are known for. And you guys are just like, food and beverage is changing almost as quickly as the capacity for events, because now you're able to activate outdoor space and different patios. What are you guys seeing as far as the future? How are you positioning yourselves in some of the events that you're looking at hosting?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy challenging. It's also like try to figure out if you plan an event from 2 months from now, like what is that going to look like? Of what's the experience? Like, it's been awesome to see so many artists and chefs hanging out on their couch, cooking and playing music. It's incredible seeing like into their homes, but we can't get used to that forever, right? So like, what does 2 months from now look like? I think that's the big piece for us that we're trying to figure out, like what's that element. But we've been using the phrase hybrid a ton. Like, you kind of like at home, you've gotten used to being at home a lot more comfortable. Like if you can watch, an awesome chef and you have a meal kit and you get to make it while you get to experience that, or ask a question live, that kind of stuff like has never really been available before, which is really interesting and kind of exciting to see what we can come up with in that space. But again, like I think we all have to really like push the boundaries of like what we used to know of what a concert was like, what it used to be at going to a brewery. Like the best days are when it was crazy packed and you like wait in line to get a beer and this and that. Like that's not the best part anymore. Obviously it's like the scariest part. But at the same time, like I know there's been a lot of pushing for festivals in general. Like, man, I don't want to be at a festival that I have to wait behind 50 people to wait for a bite of food or something. So I think people are willing to kind of adapt to that, or like much bigger space, much more kind of like interaction, pieces like that we're really curious to explore. But again, like who knows what the next couple of months looks like. I'm a little more optimistic that 1 or 2 years isn't quite the longest to stretch, but these guys produce insanely creative events, and especially like the corporate events that are playing out 2 or 3 years. So I can only imagine what they're trying to come up with.
Yeah, and I think it's tough to predict the future in any business. Your guys is probably tougher than anyone's because it just changes so much, and everyone was used to having density there. So Sarah, I'd love to chat about that. I mean, because you guys have such dynamic use. So there's food and beverage that has its own kind of situation. There's hospitality in there that has its own regulations. There's also transit that's something that people need. What's the future of Union Station look like? What are you guys doing to silo those different regulatory bodies, if anything? Love to hear about that.
I mean, it's really challenging, right? So let's talk about our liquor license for a second. Our liquor license includes the patio area of Terminal Bar and all of the patios for all of our restaurant tenants. It includes the inside of those areas, and then it includes a portion of the Great Hall. So you can't necessarily walk around with a beverage down the hallway to the bathroom, but you can sit in the Great Hall with alcohol, which sounds great 6 months ago. The issue with that now is because of the mandates, that means we can only have 50 people in the Great Hall, and our maximum capacity is over 800. So when we look at Union Station as a whole, we now have to break it down into different entities of like, okay, is the Great Hall a restaurant? And we can have 50 people there and 50 people in Terminal Bar and 50 people in Altrea, so forth and so on. With the hotel, they have so many different cleaning and sanitization items that they have to do, such as, the CDC and AHLA that has implemented all of these different items. So with us, where we might feel comfortable about having a live performer standing in the middle of the Great Hall playing music, now we're in a place where, okay, there has to be social distance on all the different levels of the balconies and social distance in the Great Hall. And how do you clean those couches once people sit on them? As most of you know, it's soft seating. So like, how do you do that? That's not something, I mean, we're privy to bed bugs, but like not COVID. So it just creates another level of challenge for us. And as much as we want to be a unit when it comes to Union Station, I think the problem we're running into is because of all these mandates, it's creating such a divide between, okay, you're a retail establishment, you're a restaurant, you're a hotel, and that provides a challenge for a place that we're trying to say, okay, we're all one.
Yeah, and I don't want to do a tangent, but I want to hear someone's opinion on this. You know, the regulatory bodies and the mandates that we have for preparing a space are one thing, but then they're trying to remove some of the restrictions on food and beverage. And like, that's to take your alcohol and be like, I can't walk down the hallway with this. It's just a really silly regulation that really needs to be pivoted. I'd love one person to chime in and say, what can be done at a governance level to remove those hindrances, knowing that we're stacking other levels of regulation and compliance and everything else. Anyone want to take that one?
I mean, I can tell you that with the patio extensions that Denver is allowing now, right? So at a restaurant, you can apply to have a patio extension or a street closure in order to expand your maximum capacity. But prior to that, right, you've got all these wild west, rules of, okay, you can have to-go alcohol, but it has to have a sticker on it. If you come down to Union Station right now, I guarantee there are people sitting around the fountains, which you're not supposed to do, with open containers, which you're not supposed to have. And what I've said to our food and beverage director multiple times is, how do we come back from that? Like, after you've made us Vegas, essentially, like you can walk around with a drink in your hand, there's not going to be an easy way for us to say, okay, now that COVID's over, never mind, you can't do all of that stuff anymore. And I think that adds a new level of challenge to the consumer because they have gotten so comfortable with saying, okay, I can do a to-go drink. I can go to a place and sit where I normally wouldn't be allowed to and have an open container. And I think that the government and the city of Denver is really going to see a challenge and a lot of pushback because that has also become such a significant revenue stream for those restaurants. So I don't think I answered your question, but it's one of those heated things, right? Where how do you go back from that?
Yeah, it just is silly that you can't just take a beer for takeaway to me. But so Nicole, I want to chat about, planning what the future looks like. I mean, you do a mega event. Yes, it's outdoors, but obviously there's a ton of people and it takes a year's worth of work to really produce something like that. So what are you guys doing? It sounds like obviously the farmers market and maybe taking some other opportunities to do smaller events to hedge. What are you guys doing when it takes a year's worth of work to produce a mega event like that?
I mean, you create plan A, B, and C then is really what we do. If it looks like this, we do this. If it looks like this, we do this. I mean, if you think about the grand tasting, which, I mean, again, anybody in the food and beverage world, any of us who've done a lot of tasting events, I all of a sudden, the other day was like the chance of being able to, I mean, if you go to a farmer's market, you can't sample and you can't eat on site, and we've gotten rid of tables. So if we can't eat in the same and drink in the same capacity that we have, how can we? And so, we're trying to flip it, and that what if we take a model like we're a restaurant? And so when you go to the grand tasting, you sit or stand or whatever at a table with your people. So instead of the wineries and the chefs having their own table and you going up to them, the guests have a table, they stay with their unit, and the wineries walk around and say, with their mask on, do you want to try our wine? The chef walks around and says, do you want to try our food? So trying to flip the experience so we can say, hey, we're like a restaurant, and you let restaurants operate as long as the tables are 8 feet or 12 feet or whatever tables have to be apart. You know, the people serving have masks on and you're with your unit or your posse that you feel safe with. Does that hit the mark for people, and that you're not interacting with strangers? How much of that's important when you're going to an event? How much are you going to meet new people, or how much are you okay just hanging with your group you came with and still having that experience?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I'm wondering the same thing. Will people only do private bookings? But then you look at the streets right now, people are loving it. So
loving it, right?
no.
Yeah, but does every event become like a Cooper Lounge where you're like making a reservation and you're on a wait? And I mean, we at the farmers market, we talked about, do we use like a hostess style, you know, check-in? You check in, you leave your name and your cell phone number, we let you know when it's your turn to come in, you know? I don't know.
It's interesting. Lauren, I'd love to hear, as far as like the demand side and the clients that you worked with to produce content and experiences, like what's their budget like? What's their appetite like? Are people just in pause mode, or are they saying, we've got to start producing something and we want to get people together, we'll just play within those rules?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a roller coaster ride, right? For all of us. It was a wave of cancellations, and then it was like, what do we do? And that's kind of still where we are, right? So we're definitely kind of out of that cancellation phase. But now, I mean, and so I mentioned Imprint Group. We've always had a digital umbrella to our service. So we've actually always offered digital and virtual experiences and meetings. Now, will I say the demand has really been focused over there, and we've really revamped kind of that team? Absolutely. The last few months has been very telling on how necessary they are, right? So we have been producing those virtual team buildings, those virtual tasting events, those virtual concerts. We actually produced, I want to say mid-April, a full benefit concert for National Jewish Health, which is one of our clients in Denver. They do a 1,500 person gala every year as a fundraiser, and we provide all their entertainment for them for 8 to 10 years running now. They had to shift some of that online, and we actually had a great opportunity to move that online. I know you kind of touched on the performers. We got some big headlining people, the Lumineers. We got, oh my God, I'm forgetting, One Republic to perform for them. And then all of a sudden the reach wasn't just in Denver anymore. It was actually global reach. So it kind of was a really cool moment to see what they had to move into to make that work. So we've always provided that, but we've now had to take our existing live event clients into how do we do a virtual experience for you in this interim. I feel like we're kind of in the murkiness right now, right? So perhaps they had budgets approved for this, right? And there's still budgets, but they don't know how to execute. So a lot of them have come to us to kind of figure that out. Incentive groups. How do you provide an incentive experience to somebody that's sitting in their living room? With that is a specialty box we've shipped, and a tasting experience, like Casey kind of mentioned, mixology experience, the chef experience right in their living room. But now that is moving into a little bit more of the hybrid. So in our world, we're seeing that a little bit more, I mean, sort of for the end of the year, but really maybe early 2021 are these big corporate companies going to have the budgets to provide these experiences? And then are their attendees going to feel, who's going to feel comfortable going to those live events, right? And so right now we're really seeing the need to show our clients how we can pair those. So let's say there's an event in Denver, capacity is unknown, right? So maybe the space can actually hold 100, but it's usually a 500 person conference. Well, they'll open it up to 100 live attendees that will actually experience the meetings in real life, like a regular hotel or venue. And then we'll also have to broadcast that and network, like virtual, bring everyone else in for the rest of the attendees to pair it together. We're finding that that's going to be an increase in some of their budgets to do both at the same time. And so I feel like we're kind of in that murky water right now where we're really trying to flesh out their budgets and be creative and be solution finding and solution based on what we can provide, all at the same time, right? So There's some good stuff there, like I mentioned with the gala for National Jewish, but then there's some stuff to really sit through and rifle through with the budgets and the contracts. And honestly, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had a team building contract come through for a hotel in Denver that was supposed to take place, I think, early this week. And it was only for, I want to say 40 people, and they booked out the largest ballroom in one of a Denver hotel for 40 people. And they wanted to do a team building experience that was a charity give back. So I think we were gonna look at building bears for some hospital, for children's hospitals. So they build the bears similar to like the experience at like the mall, and then they're donated to a hospital. Well, there's lots of hands involved in that. There's a lot of things to work through. I know we touched on entertainers. We usually always have a DJ, an MC, a staff member for each of our teams, etc. And we were like, well, I don't think we'll need the DJ if we're going to try to cut back on the amount of people that are there. So there's all these little tweaks that are going to need to happen for the remainder of this year for certain. Update, sorry, on a tangent with that team building. The client ultimately got word from her corporate headquarters that they just did not feel safe enough to go through with it. I think they felt safe with the procedures, with being so distanced at a hotel that was just brand new and reopening. However, I think they were worried about their messaging. So they didn't want to be the first one out there that did a small experience for 40, right? So they were like, we're going to have to take a step back for now. I know we'll work with them in the future, but we did provide at least some solutions to what they were looking for. But right now we're kind of in that murky and transitioning clients from into virtual experience into hybrid experiences. And then I'm hoping we will see the day where it goes back into full live experiences. So.
Yeah, so there's a lot there, like the headline risk and the liability. Who wants to be the first person, doing a big event? And I think different people have a different tolerance on that risk. So I'd love to kind of hear from you guys on that. Obviously, Lauren, like your clients will kind of dictate sometimes what their exposure is. I think Sarah, in your scenario, I mean, it's an iconic building in Denver. If they position back that an outbreak happened there, I mean, there's obviously a different level of liability and headline risk there. How are you guys looking at that?
Yeah, I mean, from a PR perspective, I would say that's the number one thing we're looking at, right? You want your place to be clean. You want your place to be sanitized. But every time, and we've all been there, right? Like, how do we brainstorm a new idea that's going to be out of the box, but bring enough people in, but give us a little bit of revenue in our tenants? And the conversation always ends up, are we going outside of the bounds of the city of Denver and the state of Colorado's mandates? Like, are we pushing these a little too far? And are we going to end up being, and I hate to say it, but the Castle Rock restaurant, right? No one wants to be the restaurant that makes headlines and gets shut down. And I think the struggle for us is, how do we do something that makes people feel safe, but has enough people, but brings in revenue, right? So if we're a brick and mortar store, essentially, the only way we really make revenue is if we're bringing people into our tenants and having them sit and eat and buy. So virtual events are out of the question. Like, there's certain things that we just can't do, but at the same time, with an occupancy that's so low, I don't know if we can really accomplish that either. And that's the conversation that we've been having internally. That's just, we don't want to be where the outbreak happens, but we also don't want to be the place, and I don't ever think Denver Union Station will get here, but you don't want to be the place that shutters either. It's a really delicate balance to have to deal with.
Yeah, and I think anyone that has a bricks and mortar location is kind of dealing with that same scenario where they're like, how do I bring people in and make them feel safe? So everyone's kind of talked about like, how can we replicate the experience, but putting 50 people in a 500 person venue sucks the energy. You could have the best performance ever and it still doesn't feel great. I mean, how is that the only option? Are we looking at all these micro, 20 unit buildings all over town that are vacant units that you're going to program at? I mean, how do we actually make it look and feel, and what are you guys working on that actually is going to feel like the type of gathering and the type of celebration that people will pay for? And this is kind of just anyone that wants to chime in, have at it.
Can I say something real quick? We randomly own a food truck. We own and manage a food truck. And the last few weeks, I know the food truck has been going out for like graduation block parties, which has been really cool to see, like these little neighborhoods renting out the food truck. And clearly that has been really sanitized and whatnot. And then it kind of like, I think can travel like around to house, and everyone's kind of having like a yard party, kind of like a block party, but yeah, they're safe because they're in their own spaces and they can stay there. That's something that we had to adapt, and we're like, we have this, like, why don't we just provide this to some of our clients? And, you know, graduation has been such a heartache for a lot of graduating seniors this year. So that was really cool to see us do that. And then separately, my husband, I actually live in Kansas City, Missouri, but I'm from Denver, born and raised, and I'm a native there. I've only been here a little bit of time. And my husband works out here at a distillery with a large parking lot. And they actually are executing a drive-through farmer's market, which I attended the other week, which was interesting, but cool. Really a way they really wanted to mostly support the local businesses here that were, you know, kind of really struggling with the shutdown. So we attended, and I don't think it was as weird as I thought it was going to be. But, you know, I think similar to Nicole's idea of having like the chefs and the wine pourers come to the table, it was like we drove and the vendors kind of monitored if we were interested or not. And there was a line in and a line out, but you still kind of have that community feel. So there was one way that was kind of cool to be a part of. I think they're running them through June here. So supporting different local businesses too, which was huge.
Yeah, and I know, Casey, you guys have done that in the past, right? So almost like a pop-up outdoor lounge experience. Is that something that you guys are looking to produce? How are you kind of pivoting in that scenario?
Yeah, definitely. I think for us, like, I've loved a lot of people coming back, whether it's from the city or from homies in the industry or whatever it might be, just kind of saying, wait a minute, like, we're used to, whether it's a restaurant or kind of like a local community event, like, we're used to kind of doing it our own way, but we now have to solve all these new problems. And it's been cool that a lot of people have said, wait a minute, like, event producers have these solutions. Like, they know how to get people in and out. They know how to like put them in the right place. And it's been cool to get a lot of like texts from friends, especially like in bars and restaurants, being like, wait a minute, like, I only know how to get people to my one little area here. Like, what can you do for me? Because now I have to think about tents and tables and like the right directions and everything. And so I think that's really exciting for us, like, as our industry, to be able to support them. I mean, I think for us, a lot of our events we mimic what happens in real life. Like, we like going to breweries, so now let's build a massive beer festival. We like going to restaurants, build a massive food festival. But man, like, even just the drive-through idea sounds really cool. I love Nicole's idea of like the different tables being set up. I don't know. I think there's going to be a ton of creativity coming from our group, but at the end of the day, like, I think the hardest part for event producers, especially for the consumer facing, is to let people know what they're going to get and like what that experience, like, how do I guarantee, especially with all our new costs, like double the ticket price, like, what am I going to get? Hopefully now people are a lot more particular what they do. But yeah, it's I don't know. I keep kind of circling back of like, I don't know what the future holds, but I think it's going to be really supportive from our industry to like put them in the right place, especially like Union Station example. Like, how do we divide this up? It's like, well, it's a massive event. Like, that's how we're going to do it and do it the right way. So.
Yeah. So Nicole, are you seeing something similar as far as people moving from being just consumers in a public space to being creators of their own experience because they want to keep it localized, or they want tents in their backyard? And are you seeing that as maybe a decentralization of your social experience? And
yeah, I mean, it's kind of wild to think it's kind of like both. Like, I know all of us have been holed up in our houses and different things. I know I'm doing more stuff at the yard and now thinking like, how do I host 5 friends over? I've never used to hosting 50,000 people, not 5. And it's kind of cool of like, now everyone understands what it's like to host and do that. So I can't say it's all bad of what's happening, but certainly on the flip of how do bars and restaurants now stand out? For the next couple of weeks, it'll be cool. Like, like, great job, you busted your ass, you got table set up outside. But like, okay, I came to your restaurant for XYZ reasons, or you stood out for your design, your awesome food, this and that. Like, it can't just be an abbreviated menu forever. Like, I think we're all gonna have to jump in, especially for food and beverage, and that's a little bit more of my world, but.
For sure. Nicole, you said that you guys are kind of A, B, and C. However you roll out your event, you've got contingency plans. Are all the contingency plans taking in kind of the same safety protocols? I mean, is that something that you guys are trying to monitor on a day-to-day basis to kind of add those variables to your decision-making metrics?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting, as I say, A, B, and C, a lot of that is kind of the, how many people can we have? So does it become 1 or 2 grand tastings, and can people sit at community tables, or does everybody again have to sit at an individual table? So that's really so much of what our business planning is. For kind of the safety piece, there's a lot of a wait and see game right now. You know, I kind of have the plan that I know today, and the things like, we're right now standing at entrances at farmers markets, greeting people and spraying hand sanitizer on them. But we're making sure it's awesome hand sanitizer with aloe and infused with lavender that like smells good. And people are walking in and they're like, wow, this is really nice, thanks. Which is funny that became an experience piece, but it's now become an experience piece. So we've got the idea of what today's protocols are in place, but I don't even know how to plan B and C for what those are going to be. Like, my B and C's are, how close can I sit to you?
Yeah, makes sense. Hey, Destiny, I'm wondering if there's a future that almost like a residency in Vegas for musicians and artists that they just live in a city and they do 50-person shows for the entire summer. I mean, is this something that you guys are looking at in Live Nation?
Company-wide, I don't know if that's something we're looking at, but that's actually kind of like what we do at like Summit Marquee. I feel like we do have we do have certain artists that come through and they just like play a set every month or like twice a month and stuff like that. So I don't know if that's going to be something that we do. But I was actually just answering someone's question, but we were just talking about the future. Like, I know Lauren was saying something about like the drive-in farmers market, and although it's not the same experience, it might be kind of a cool experience because you're like driving to a concert and now you're at like a drive-in, and it's kind of like an old school feel, but like you don't get to touch or like dance around, but it's like kind of a different, experience for you guys. But yeah, I have no idea if we would ever do something like a residency. And I think that's kind of a question for like our talent buyers who are like booking all the different concerts and everything. That's more of like their realm, but yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting world, and I read a couple of the group chats, and everyone's worried about live music. Like, as much
I know.
Leverage, that's what's missed the most. I'm really interested, just you guys personally, like from a consumer and a creator, what are you missing most? And we'll kind of just go around the horn on that.
Like for me, for concerts, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, as being able to be a creator and produce something, you're probably missing a portion of that, but also as being a consumer and going to something, what are you missing most?
Yeah, I honestly, I know like people are like, oh, I don't want to wait in line, I don't want to do this, but I love being around like crowds of people. That's my jam. Like, I love going to concerts, and it's so easy when you work in a music venue and you're like, I'm just gonna go downstairs and I'm just gonna go to this concert and check it out for a while, and like that's like what I miss is I miss just like walking out of my office, and I miss just like going to this concert and being like, not even knowing an artist, that's in the venue, and then walking out and being like, wow, that's a really great artist. I had no idea. And then like discovering new music is huge. And I felt like I'm pretty new to Denver. Like, I've only been here for a little over a year. So like one of the biggest things that I did when I first moved here was I just looked through like a bands in town calendar, and I was like, what kind of shows are playing? Like, what are these venues like? And I just went and looked at all these different venues because like I didn't know anybody, but I knew that I liked music. And so it's like going out, you meet the like new people that like the same music that you do or that you like, and then like discovering like newer music. Maybe you go to like a show by yourself that you've never heard of before. So there's just so many things that I miss about it, because there's just like meeting new people, and it's just like the different experiences with like the different music, you know. It's like you can go to a metal concert, you can go to like an acoustic show, you can go to a hip hop show. There's just so many different things that you can do with music.
So a concert that you pack the house, but everyone has to have already had COVID, and that's the solution there.
Yeah, yeah, right. You have to have it to come in.
Sarah, what about you? What are you missing as a creator, and what about as a consumer?
I mean, as a creator, you know, our schedule of events for the year, I think about Santa, right? Santa is huge at Union Station during Christmas time. It's what all the kids look forward to. We normally have a 3-hour-long wait list to sit on his lap. Like, if things keep going the way they're going, we can't do that this year. And that joy that we bring to the community of Denver, like that just kills me, right? Because I want to be able to bring something, but to have to, you know, say, okay, you have to socially distance and you have to wear a mask when you sit on Santa's lap. Like, I don't know. There's just a part of me that like dies saying that. And I understand all of the health concerns and that sort of thing, but it just doesn't feel the same. And then as a consumer, I miss sports. I miss basketball. Like I miss being in the stadium and being next to other sweaty people who are like screaming at the same time that you are, and you're throwing your beer even though you're not supposed to. Like, there's just so many things that now on the other side of it, I feel like I took for granted as a consumer, that every time I have the ability to go sit on a patio now and have dinner, I'm like, oh my God, thank God I'm so allowed to do this right now, because you're just dying for that interaction.
Yeah, you don't know what you got till it's gone, but also once this is over, I'd love to go to a sporting event with you. If you throw beer all over people and scream, sounds great. What about you, Nicole, from being a consumer and a creator?
You know, I think I miss the spontaneity. I feel like, oh my gosh, if it's 7:30 and I haven't figured out dinner, like you're certainly not going to a restaurant or going to go sit at a bar and get food. You're probably not ordering from anywhere because anything's closing at 8. Even like, I mean, as much as the farmers market's open and I think the experience is great, it just doesn't feel, I don't know, I'm trying to encourage everybody to go in one-way traffic. Like that doesn't feel spontaneous, you know? I think I miss just the living in the moment, by the moment. Just going.
I feel you. Casey, what about you, except for waiting in line on a patio for a beer?
Always that. Yeah, no, as a creator, I think in a similar way, like, gotta get a little sentimental here. Like, we bring people together. Like, you see it so much before people come to an event or a show. Like, the immediate hug, you can see that they just like haven't seen each other in weeks or months or whatever it might be, and it's like, oh, they had a reason to come together. And then, I mean, company wise, like we scream and yell at each other all the way up to an event and it's running. And then afterwards we have a beer and hug it out. And it's like the best feeling. And it's weird not having that. It's a very different vibe than maybe just like going live with a website or something else. Like you're in the trenches and you get the hug out afterwards. As a consumer, despite being in the planning industry, I'm not like with my day-to-day life. I think that's the beauty of it. Like we do it so much in the 9 to 5, that like just kind of rolling after a concert and rolling out after the event, kind of just being like, okay, like let's go to a restaurant, let's go get another beer, let's go do something. Like you don't have to have it set or let me plug in my app exactly what the order is going to be when I get there in 30 minutes or anything like that. And I miss that. I think that's the most fun of most of my nights and everything else. And I don't know. We'll see if that comes along soon enough.
Yeah, I mean, there's a part of me that hopes that, I don't know if anyone here has been to Burning Man, but like what we're doing at Reactiv is activating vacant spaces. So I'm hoping there is a scenario that you're walking down Tennyson or Rhino and someone has sound experience or someone did an immersive art project and you just walk through it and it's 5 or 10 minutes, but at least gives you that sense of awe. It gives you that sense of like spontaneity and excitement, rather than saying, is the restaurant closed at 8 because I can only get takeaway at that portion. So I'm hoping there's creators out there to start activating spaces for that purpose. What about you, Lauren?
Well, y'all, I have a 2-year-old. I have a 2-year-old. So I think first and foremost, I just miss his teachers at his school and being able to drop him in a safe place and having some hours to myself. I miss his nanny. It's been a wild ride since March 16th. He's amazing though. I've enjoyed all the time we've had together, but I do miss just the structure for him. And I've had to juggle all of this, you know, with a 2-year-old. My husband's working full-time out of the home. So it's been this craziness, but you know, as far as like, you know, planning and whatnot, I have an amazing team of a creative team, some producers at Imprint. I'm really in business development, so I really make those connections with people and get them excited to work for us, or get them excited to get a proposal from us and see our ideas to bring their conference to life or whatnot. And the influx of cancellations and all that, you know, and just not being able to really connect with people and kind of getting the bad news week after week is, you know, I think I miss that connection with people. But just as, you know, my mother actually came for a week-long visit last week, and I had her as some help here with her grandson. And my husband and I went golfing for the first time since I was pregnant, actually. So there's 2 years plus a few months there. So we got to go golfing, not pregnant. And then afterwards we stopped at a local like outdoor brewery. Like they have like an outdoor space, which was a kind of a new experience, but my God, a welcomed one. So, and no 2-year-old, he wasn't with us. So we got to be outdoors for some adult time. So I think that's what, you know, hoping I can do that again soon is, you know, would be a welcomed treat.
I bet golf never seemed so exciting ever.
I know. I was horrible too. Just awful. I did not care at all. I was outside. I did not care.
Awesome. Well, Gertie, you take it. I know we're low on time here.
Yeah. Well, you guys, thank you so much for being on this chat today. It feels like we got a lot out of this conversation. As a big consumer of the Denver event scene and someone that loves to throw parties of their own, it's been such a pleasure to hear what you all have had to say. As I mentioned at the beginning, we started Fireside at 5 really to bring diverse minds together for intentional conversation. We really try to strip ego out of our fireside chats, and I feel like that was really well accomplished today, you know, between the collaboration of sharing ideas, what your future plans are, and how you're pivoting in this time. We're all working together, and I really think that's how we all remain strong. So with all of that in mind, I really hope that we can all keep partying together and throwing these fun events for the community, because I know how much I love it and how much everyone else does as well. So again, I really appreciated you guys all being on this fireside chat today. And if anyone wants to host fireside chats of their own or is interested in hearing a little bit more about what we're doing, please feel free to reach out. My name is in the agenda with my email attached. So yeah, that's all I've got to say. And thank you so much, Jason, for facilitating such a fantastic dialogue. And thanks to Do 303 and Westward for sponsoring this series with us and blasting it out to all their people as well. It's great. So we've got 2 more chats coming up. We've got one that's going to be talking about retail and one that's going to be talking about kind of redesigning office spaces. That'll be the next 2 weeks. We're looking forward to having those panelists join as well. That's all from me. Thank you guys again. I appreciate it. Have a great night. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.